Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
He didn't see it coming. This young man is jumped in this horrific beating as someone records it for others to see.
An Inkster man takes off from police in his girlfriend's car. He crashes, killing his passenger. Tonight, that girlfriend speaking to Local 4, and she has questions.
Wind chills have stayed above zero today, but are you ready for round 2 tomorrow?
Okay, Ben, but we want to start with that beating caught on camera. It involves a hearing impaired man being beaten by another man.
And police say the woman holding the camera in the video set it all up. Jason Colthorpe live at the 12th precinct at this hour. Jason, apparently all three of them knew each other.
They did, Devin, and as a matter of fact, all three are deaf. We believe the victim and the attacker are 22 years old, and the woman is around 30. It's believed that all three went to a school for hearing impaired, and they were together in that school at one point or another. The mother, after this happened, took her son to the hospital. She came here to the 12th precinct to file a complaint, and like you said, she believes the woman behind the camera had a pretty big hand in this. The video starts with taunting and then a sucker punch. It gets much worse from there. The attacker throwing one haymaker after another and also kicking and stomping him for more than 2 minutes as he tries to sign him to stop.
When I seen the video, I was devastated.
The victim and his family didn't want to go on camera, but his mother told me the whole family is upset.
My daughter seen it. She just started crying. My first thought was he could have got killed. I didn't know he was there. None of us knew he was there. I mean, he could have got killed.
Detroit police confirmed the three went to school together and there was a feud going back between the two men. The woman is the one who messaged the 22-year-old victim to come over.
He was just set up, lured pretty much to get to the apartment to where the guy was at. The girl picked him up, and once he got there, she just started jumping him.
Detroit police have identified everyone involved and are investigating.
Whether you're hearing impaired, blind, crippled, crazy, whatever, it shouldn't happen at all. I think they just need to learn their lesson. You just cannot do this. And you doing it to get likes and shares and stuff on Facebook, that's not cool.
Not at all. As of right now, no arrests by DPD in this case, but they, as I say, they've identified everyone involved. I did talk to the young man who went to the hospital involved in this case, the victim. He's okay. He's doing well. He was in pretty good spirits when I saw him today for a little while. Reporting live tonight, Jason Colthorpe, Local 4.
So, Jason, have police seen this video then?
They have. We sent it to them about middle of the day here as the investigation was already ongoing. We sent it to them. And as they investigated further, they found out not only was there that video, but when the victim left the apartment, he got jumped again, and the girl videotaped again, this time on Facebook Live. So it just continued, and just when you think every detail Detroit police keep uncovering is worse than the last.
Sure sounds like it, yeah. All right, Jason. Kim.
A whole lot of questions tonight surrounding a police chase that left a woman dead and the driver seriously injured. It started just after 5 this morning in Dearborn Heights and ended in Inkster. Sean Lay spoke to the owner of the car in the crash, and she's the driver's boyfriend. Sean, what does she know about the woman killed?
What does she know about the woman killed? Absolutely nothing, Kimberly. A big mystery for her. We have learned this afternoon that the woman passenger here that did lose her life is 33 years old, and she is from Monroe. Now, the girlfriend says her boyfriend was driving her car early in the morning. She certainly has questions. Dearborn Heights police certainly have questions as well.
I get the call and my boyfriend. He's not answering.
That is the voice of the woman who owns this silver car. She was working overnight at her job at an auto plant. When her family saw her car on the news this morning involved in this deadly accident, family thought she was involved. Instead, it was her boyfriend of 6 years. She says his name is Sheldon Hornbuckle, who was driving her car and running from Dearborn Heights police. A 33-year-old woman from Monroe was his passenger. She died when Hornbuckle lost control. What was he doing out at 5 in the morning with her car and another woman?
Why were you, is my question. Why were you even out at that time?
Dearborn Heights police say an officer turned on his lights attempting to stop Hornbuckle for a broken headlight. Instead, he took off, crashing just around the corner from where he lives with his girlfriend. Police don't know why he simply didn't stop.
He would be the one that would have the answers to that, but it's obviously never worth it given the outcome.
Neighbors say Hornbuckle hit this tree so hard it shook the neighborhood.
Oh, it was very loud, very loud boom.
Now one woman is dead, a boyfriend in grave condition, and his girlfriend wanting answers.
The police were asking you what kind of questions?
Just how long we've been together. Is it unusual for him? Why was he out that time of morning? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm at work.
Back here live, just checked in with the police chief here in Dearborn Heights. Sheldon Hornbuckle remains in very critical, grave condition at the hospital tonight. The chief says if he pulls through, they are preparing felony charges, likely of fleeing and causing an accident, causing death. Kimberly, back to you.
Well, Sean, we mentioned that the chase went from Dearborn Heights to Inkster. It didn't last very long, did it?
Not long at all. 5 blocks. Now, the chief says he's been reviewing the video in-car, in-dash camera. MSP also investigating as well. He says he believes his officer was about a half block away from Hornbuckle when Hornbuckle lost control of that car. Again, MSP investigating the crash. Police here investigating what he was doing out and why he ran from them.
Okay. Sean, keep us posted. Thanks.
We've seen it all today, I think. We had frigid wind chills, we had a little bit of snow, and then we had the sun, too.
Definitely a mixed bag. Let's get over to Ben and the wind chill. Man, it makes it feel even colder.
Yeah, Kim and Devin, usually February is boring as all get out, but it has really kept us on our toes, especially this week. The wind chills have been in single numbers for much of the day and still are, with the exception of Monroe, which is at 10, a whopping 10. Coming up tonight, the skies are starting to clear out, and that's what's giving us at least some sunshine out there. But it is going to allow temperatures to drop pretty quickly tonight. So we're going to go down to 14 degrees at midnight and possibly even farther than that in some locations. We'll look at the warmer temperatures that are coming back for the weekend in your 7-day forecast in just a few minutes. Kim?
Okay, Ben, thank you. Today, the murder trial for the man accused of killing an Uber driver began. 24-year-old Dewan Watson is accused of shooting and killing 51-year-old Modou Diangue back in March. Both the prosecution and the defense made their opening statements before putting witnesses on the stand. The prosecutor spent time talking about the evidence and bloody clothes found in Watson's backyard. The defense says there's no doubt Diangue was killed, but no proof his client did it. If convicted, Watson faces life in prison.
In Washington today, the president's pick for the Supreme Court, Neil Gorsuch, has been making the rounds on Capitol Hill and distancing himself from the White House, telling a senator that the president's harsh criticism of judges is demoralizing. All of that happens as the new Attorney General Jeff Sessions was sworn in today. Tracy Potts following it all from Washington. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Devin. We were watching as Judge Neil Gorsuch made another round of meetings with lawmakers here on Capitol Hill today, behind closed doors, making it pretty clear that he does not always agree with the president.
Supreme Court nominee Judge Neil Gorsuch back on Capitol Hill today, talking to lawmakers behind closed doors about what President Trump said.
Courts seem to be so political.
About judges deciding the fate of his travel ban.
He said any attack on any of, I think his term to me was brothers or sisters of the robe, is an attack on all judges.
Republican Ben Sasse and Democrat Richard Blumenthal say Gorsuch told them the same thing.
Judge Gorsuch specifically said, you should feel free to mention what I said about these attacks being disheartening and demoralizing.
Gorsuch's office confirmed he said it, but the president lashed out at Blumenthal.
Ask Senator Blumenthal about his Vietnam record. He misrepresented that just like he misrepresented Judge Gorsuch.
The president brought Democrats to the White House today to convince them to support Gorsuch. He needs 8 Democrats, but it'll be a hard sell for some.
Because of politics, perhaps they're not going to vote for him. I think that's a shame because that's not being honest.
Democrats question whether the judge's private criticism is orchestrated to make him appear independent of the Trump administration.
Welcome to the White House.
The new attorney general sworn in today with 3 new executive orders aimed at reducing crime and an eye on the immigration battle underway in federal courts.
And there's another big issue that could hit a lot of Americans in the wallet, sort of flying below the radar here in Washington. That's tax reform. They're working on it. In fact, the president said today he should have a comprehensive plan ready to present in 2 or 3 weeks. From Washington, Tracy Potts, Local 4.
All right, Tracy. Also today, White House advisor Kellyanne Conway being criticized for promoting Ivanka Trump's clothing line during a live interview. You recall that clothing line has been dropped by the Nordstrom brand. Well, the Republican chair of the House Ethics Committee calls that a direct violation of long-established rules. The White House later on today said Conway has been counseled about the issue. Well, tonight a Detroit City Council member hosting a town hall for parents to discuss Detroit school closures.
The state is currently planning to shut down 25 underperforming Detroit schools. Detroit City Council member Scott Benson is holding a town hall meeting tonight at Pershing High School. The meeting gets underway at 6 o'clock p.m. It was one of the largest raids in state history tonight. We're learning what was really going on inside the Victory Inn.
New tonight, the startling new details about what police found inside as neighbors rally to keep it closed for good.
And he knew they were closing in. New tonight, what prosecutors now say the gymnastics doctor accused in a string of horrible sex crimes did months before his arrest.
And Kwame Kilpatrick says he should not pay the city of Detroit a dime. What the former mayor is claiming from behind bars that could bring that case back to life when we come right back.
New at 6.
Why was a local woman forced to have her baby on a jail cell floor instead of the hospital? Today, the defenders go one-on-one with Sheriff Tony Wickersham. The story is coming up.
Also, a former Dearborn city clerk brought before a judge in an embezzlement investigation that dates back to 2015. At 6, the dollar amount she's accused of taking right out of a cash box.
While Kwame Kilpatrick sits in an Oklahoma prison, lawyers all the way back here in Detroit are still fighting over his case.
And tonight, his legal team is fighting to keep him from having to pay back any money to the city. Rod Maloney live with more on how much or how likely it would be that he wouldn't pay any restitution. Rod?
Well, Devin, it's possible that he won't have to pay any, believe it or not, but it's still a very long, complicated case, and it comes from this filing that Kwame's appeals attorney put into the courthouse, but it's in direct opposition to what the government is looking for. Back in 2013, when Kwame Kilpatrick stood before Judge Nancy Edmonds for sentencing, one of the many components of his 28 years in prison was to pay just over $4.5 million in restitution to the city of Detroit. The judge arrived at that number using an array of differing formulas applied to evidence of the construction contracts Kilpatrick pushed to his friend Bobby Ferguson as part of the racketeering scheme. Fast forward 2 years, and an appeals court ruled that restitution calculation process improper and told Judge Edmonds to start over. So in the interim, while Kwame tried to get the Supreme Court to hear his case, which it didn't, work began on the new restitution number, and it's much smaller, like $3 million less, and they're asking now for $1.6 million. But Kilpatrick's attorney, Harold Gurewitz, is saying that the number should be zero. He claims the court rules requiring using a loss to calculate restitution, yet the government and the judge used gain on a construction contract instead, which he believes is not legal. He wrote in his filing, quote, "This case now becomes an instance in which the process by which to attempt to determine restitution is too complicated and time-consuming to pursue the specter of restitution as part of Mr. Kilpatrick's 28-year custodial sentence," end quote. So you're saying, okay, he doesn't have to pay back anything? Well, that's not entirely correct, because he did have to forfeit $4.5 million as part of his sentencing, and also he had to pay the IRS a couple of $1 million. So as it stands right now, it's just this one small corner of it, but it's still millions of dollars the city may or may not get. Back to you.
So then, Rod, when might this issue then end up back in court?
Very good question, Devin. There's no date set yet, and they've been doing this corner of this for the past year and a half. So who knows? Maybe next year. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
All right, Rod. We'll keep following it, obviously. Well, Mayor Duggan celebrated the opening of a new apartment building in downtown Detroit today.
This is exciting. The Griswold is a brand new $24 million development with 80 new apartments. It's located near the Book Cadillac Hotel along Michigan Avenue in Griswold. The city says it's Detroit's first new construction residential real estate project in 25 years. There's still about 40 apartments available to be leased. That's pretty good. They've got half of them already leased. Right now on clickondetroit.com, you can take a 360-degree tour of the Griswold apartments. Just go to our homepage and you'll see it right there.
Pretty cool.
Yeah,
I watched
really
it. Tim Pamplin shot that earlier today. 360. Watch it on your mobile device, and you can just kind of move it all around. Really cool. Well, this news just came down a few minutes ago. This morning's snow almost caused a. Let me get to this breaking news. Tell you what, we'll do the snow first. Sorry, Snow's going to tell you breaking news. We'll do that after weather. The snow almost caused a bit of a whiteout downtown, and then, just like that, the sun came back out.
I know. Ben said it right. It definitely keeps you on your toes here. My goodness, you don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, it turned out to be less than an inch for a lot of us, but man, it caused some issues on that commute. Timing was not good. The other thing that we're watching this evening are the temperatures, which have creeped into the 20s. That's what the thermometer says. But we showed you at the top of the broadcast, wind chills have been in single numbers for much of the day, so it definitely feels a lot colder out there. That 23 compared to what we saw yesterday is 8 degrees colder, but when you compare it to that record high of 56 that we set just 2 days ago, we're talking 30+ degrees colder in just the last 48 hours. And there is that band of snow that rolled through here this morning. Not very thick, but you can see that dark colors on the radar indicating that there was some pretty intense snowfall embedded within those quick moving snow showers. As that exited, we got rid of some of the clouds, which are just not really evident here on the infrared satellite, but we're going to continue to clear things out tonight, at least for the first half of the evening. And then we're going to watch the clouds come back as we get into the second half. So dry conditions tonight. Tomorrow, Clipper rolls to our north, and we're going to get just brushed on the tail end of this. So I think this is really only going to be for areas in our north zone. You may see a quick snow shower similar to what we saw today. Could put down a fresh coating in a couple spots, but warm front moves through for the weekend. That means temperatures getting back to the 40s for highs, and our next chance of precipitation after that possible snow shower tomorrow is going to be rain on Saturday. And even though most of this will be liquid, still a little bit of a question on timing and temperature. So by the time we get into Sunday, there may be a little bit of a mix in with some of those raindrops, but until then, it is definitely going to be cold. Let's look at low temperatures tonight, which are actually going to be a little bit lower than what we started out with this morning. So anywhere between 12 and 15 is what we're expecting in our metro zone to start out tomorrow. South zone slightly colder, 12 or 13 are your choices there. Still all double digits in the west zone, but not, or just barely, I should say, from 10 degrees in Flint to 13 in Canton tomorrow. And there will be a couple single numbers. These are actual temperatures, not just wind chills. 9 degrees here in Sandusky, Marlette, and North Branch by tomorrow. Winds are going to diminish as we get through the nighttime hours, so they won't be as brisk tomorrow morning. 33 is the high side tomorrow. Winds will be ramping back up, so it will feel like the 20s in the afternoon with that temperature that's above freezing. There are the 40s over the weekend, and there they go again.
Up and down.
30s come back, Monday through Thursday. We're going to kind of settle things down for much of next week. It's going to be more
fine.
More typical
You
February.
could use that.
We need a break.
Yes, we all.
All right, now to the breaking news that I promised. We have just learned that it should be any time now that we hear about a decision from the Ninth Federal Court of Appeals on the president's travel ban. The decision is due, we're told, by the close of business today for the Ninth Court. That's in California, so that means between now and 8 p.m. our time, we would expect a decision on this very controversial travel ban to come down just as soon as it happens. We'll have it for you here on the broadcast side and over on clickondetroit.com as well.
In the meanwhile, we are just 1 year away from the Olympics in South Korea, and already the torch is being passed. Sort of passed, we'll say that. I see what you did there. Ahead here at 5, the big news Bob Costa shared today and why it's a very big deal for Metro Detroit.
Sure is. But first, brand new information into that horrible high-wire accident in Florida. What Nick Wallenda says he plans to do tonight as 5 people are still in the hospital.
My kids never.
We're learning more about the accident that injured 5 members of the world-famous Nick Wallenda acrobatic team.
Yesterday, 8 performers were on a high wire rehearsing a human pyramid with no safety net when something went wrong and caused the acrobats to tumble. 3 of the performers were able to grab the wire, but the 5 others fell, some from as high as 40 feet. Wallenda says a performer fainting may have caused the accident. Tonight, he will perform in his team's honor.
And I've asked every one of them individually, privately, separately, and everybody unanimously said, yes, we want you to get on that wire again. That's what we do. That's who we are.
That's what he always does. All 5 performers hurt are expected to be okay.
All of them just broke some broken bones, but nobody
Yep.
Really seriously
Amazing.
hurt. No spinal injuries. It really is extraordinary. Today marks the 10-year anniversary of the murder of Tara Grant. Grant's murder captured the attention of the entire country. She was reported missing by her husband, Stephen Grant, in February of 2007. It was later revealed Stephen killed Tara 5 days before that. Police said he strangled her, dismembered her body, and then scattered her remains in and around their home. Grant was arrested after a bizarre attempt to hide up north. If you recall all this, it's hard to believe that it's just 10 years ago, or that it's already 10 years ago. He's now serving a 50 to 80-year prison sentence. The Detroit Pistons celebrating Black History Month today, and in a big way.
They did by giving out some huge scholarships to high school students. Pistons legend Rick Mahorn and the Pistons Foundation hosted the 12th annual Black History Month scholarship event today at the DIA. The event sees 10 students competing for scholarships, and I was lucky enough to be one of the judges there. They presented all sorts of different interpretations. You saw their spoken word, dancing, that sort of thing. This year's theme was unity. The grand prize winner got a $25,000 scholarship. The runners-up got $15,000 and $10,000.
Awesome.
It was fantastic, but it was hard to be a judge because they were so good.
Responsibility. Back with more in a minute.
New at 5:30.
Valentine's Day quickly approaching, and now the experts revealing how you can get the best deal on flowers and what you should do to keep these flowers nice and fresh. That story coming up in my Help Me Hank report.
Winter wallop. A snowstorm pummels the East Coast, bringing travel to a standstill.
The Victory Inn Motel is shut down, but this group is gathering outside to make sure it never reopens. Plus, what newly unsealed court documents say went on inside the motel.
It's dinner time. Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5:30 starts now.
It was a true hotel of horrors. Tonight, the community rallies to shut down this crime-ridden motel as we learn haunting new details about just how bad things were inside. Newly released court documents reveal the Victory Inn really wasn't a motel at all.
It's actually claimed that only 3 of the more than 36 rooms were actually available to paying guests. The rest were for crimes, and those crimes range from drugs to prostitution. Dermont Terry following that story tonight as a rally is held to keep the motel closed for good. Dermont.
Yeah, Devin, this hotel has been ordered to stay shut down for at least a year. Now, if you take a look over my shoulder, you can see that there are some community members gathering. They've been praying. They want to make sure this place never reopens. And newly unsealed federal documents revealed that this was a place of sex, torture, and drugs all inside this motel. Back in January, Local 4 cameras were rolling when federal agents raided the Victory Inn Motel. More than 200 law enforcement officers stormed the Detroit motel. The investigation headed up by Homeland Security. It was clear they were here because of crime. But newly unsealed federal documents reveal so much more. Court records show close to 20 women were forced into human trafficking. Their pimps tortured and kept them drugged, available for Johns visiting the various rooms of the motel.
That's an everyday thing over there. You see it every day. They walking up and down the street. They hopping from truck to truck, car to car.
The records go on to say the motel was essentially a front for an organized crime ring with lookout men stationed on corners in and around the 2-story building. Those lookout men watched for law enforcement, but little did they know the feds were watching them too. The newly unsealed documents show agents set up surveillance at the motel for months, collecting enough evidence for drugs, prostitution, and human trafficking. During the raid, more than a dozen women, many who were tortured, were rescued.
As a mother, I'm very disgusted. I mean, I have a daughter that's 17 years old.
And for that reason, those who live near the Victory Inn Motel never want to see this place open again.
To let the owner know and the judge know that we want this place shut down for good. That we believe that a year is not good enough. We want this place to be shut down permanently.
Now, we do know that the feds charged at least 2 men in this case. Unfortunately, as they point out, this was an organized ring. They never call up with the accused ringleader. He is still on the streets tonight. Reporting live in Detroit, Jermont Terry, Local 4.
Jermont, what about the owners? Are they facing any charges in this?
Right now, Devin, looking through these court documents that were unsealed, there was nothing indicating that the owner is charged or even knew potentially what was going on. But again, it's still an open investigation.
All right, Jermont.
Former Michigan State University physician Dr. Larry Nassar is facing a new allegation tonight. Authorities now say Nassar destroyed possible evidence in the months before his arrest. They say he had all files stored on a laptop destroyed back in September, 3 months before he was charged with possessing child porn. The new charge was added to Nassar's indictment on Tuesday. In a separate case, Nassar is being sued by 18 women and girls for sexual abuse.
Right now, the cleanup in the Northeast underway after the biggest snowstorm of the season there.
People are digging out from Philadelphia to New York, while places like Boston and northern New England are just now getting the worst of it.
Ben's here. Yeah, let's get a closer look at it, Ben.
Winter's going on in some parts of the country. This is pretty evident from that. You're looking at live pictures from Warwick, Rhode Island, where they're still getting it pretty bad right now, and that's after this same storm dumped 10 inches of snow on New York City in what is the biggest storm of the season. In New York, winter is back.
Coming down, we can't keep up with it.
A powerful nor'easter stretching from the mid-Atlantic to northern New England left a blanket of white and made travel miserable.
This is not a storm that should be taken lightly.
More than 50 million Americans were under winter storm watches and warnings. Schools closed, thousands of flights canceled, and with driving slow going, people found better ways to get around.
It's pretty close to whiteout. It's tough, really slippery. Definitely have to be on your game to be able to drive in this.
Areas including Boston had blizzard warnings, and Connecticut got the not-so-common sound of thunder snow. People along the Massachusetts coast now seeing high winds and rough seas. Public officials urging people to take the storm seriously.
The heaviest snow is still in front of us, and the blowing and the cleanup is also in front of us as well, followed by the freezing temperatures.
As the storm tapered off, children in New York enjoyed a rare snow day.
What are you doing here today?
Making snowman.
The return of winter, welcomed by some, but not as enjoyable for others. Yeah, and so far, at least one person has died as a direct result of the storm. It was a man who slipped and fell through a window in New York while shoveling. And guys, this was not the typical nor'easter. This one moved fast, but it was still packing. Pretty big punch.
Sure was. All right, Ben.
Across Michigan this Thursday, we're following stories from Mount Pleasant and up north in Missaukee County.
And let's start this roundup in Flint, and that's where a 4-year-old was killed while crossing a street on her way to school this morning. Just 4 years old. Crash happened just before 7 a.m. at the intersection of Dort Highway and Lippincott Boulevard, known to be a very busy intersection there. Police said the child was accompanied by her mother, but after an investigation, police found the girl and her mother did not have the right-of-way when she was hit.
A Central Michigan University student group is apologizing today after an anti-Semitic Valentine's Day card was given to a fellow student. The student who received the card said it had a picture of Adolf Hitler and made references to the Holocaust. She said it came from a student group called the College Republicans. She later confronted them on Facebook. In response today, the group called the card inappropriate and said it was placed into a bag of Valentine cards with members' knowledge. Up north in Missaukee County, authorities say they're going through a mountain of evidence after a series of drug busts with a connection to Florida.
Investigation began last spring when police noticed homes in remote areas being purchased. They didn't execute a search warrant at one of the homes on their radar until last week after they noticed some strange activity around the place, and then they found 171 marijuana plants at one home, 150 more at another. 2 sisters have been arrested. Investigators believe the operation, though, is actually being funded by people in Miami. In Ohio, a village is being forced to pay back $3 million in speeding tickets. Back in 2013, a village in Butler County, Ohio, installed traffic cameras. And in 15 months, the village cited nearly 45,000 people for speeding. Well, today, a judge ruled the money was an unjust enrichment and that the village has to pay back everyone who was cited. The village says it is going to continue, though, to fight the ruling.
Well, with 1 year to go before the Olympics, NBC is doing its own passing of the torch.
So something after hosting 11 consecutive Olympic Games, a guy who seems synonymous with the Olympics, Bob Costas, is handing the primetime hosting duties over to Mike Tirico, a man with very deep ties to Metro Detroit. Tickled about that part of this. Steve Garagiola here now. It's a great move for both of them, I would say.
Well, it is. I think Costas is outstanding, but so is Mike Tirico. So maybe sports fans are the winners here. It's certainly the end of an era at NBC Sports, no doubt about that. After a quarter of a century as the primetime host of the network's biggest sports events, Bob Costas steps aside from Mike Tirico, who recently signed a multi-million-dollar contract with NBC. Mike says all that stuff about a dream come true certainly applies here.
A job you never dream of filling, an opportunity you never think that you will get.
Mike Tirico will assume Bob Costas' spot as host of Sunday Night Football. But of greater significance, he takes over NBC's biggest sports role, primetime host of the Olympics, starting in South Korea next February. For half a century, that hosting job belonged to two men, Jim McKay at ABC Sports, and for the past 25 years, Bob Costas at NBC.
Two people who I've really, truly admired since I was a little kid, and now the opportunity as a much older and bigger kid to do the same job that they've done and they've defined is quite humbling.
NBC says Costas will maintain a role in what the network calls its iconic events, like the Triple Crown. Costas says the decision to step down is his.
Years ago, NBC made it clear it's your decision. You can keep going as long as you want, or you can step aside whenever it feels right.
For Mike Tirico, looking ahead to the Winter Olympics, he says he loves all of the Michigan connections. He and his wife live in Ann Arbor, and many of the figure skaters also have strong ties to Michigan.
People who trained somewhere in our backyard with Michigan or Michigan State ties. And if all else fails, at least you got a guy from Ann Arbor who's going to be on every night.
That's right. So we get a little extra then, don't we, Mike? Thank you very much. Bob Costas will continue to do play-by-play for baseball telecasts on the MLB network, as well as signature events for NBC. He calls this a transition, not a retirement, so we'll still see a lot of it.
It's interesting. The Olympics often go from sports, it suddenly becomes news. And I always think guys who do play-by-play, we've seen it with Al Michaels, George Blaha, the night of the crazy stuff at the Palace. Play-by-play guys really seem to handle news really well because they're so used to watching things as they're happening.
Well,
it's all
following the action, describing the action, and that's what a
and
news
that'll be the same with Mike, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, how do you move a priceless piece of art and a true piece of American history?
The answer is very carefully, but not before workers do something that may completely destroy it. We'll show you what they did ahead.
Flowers, they're a big business, especially this time of year. Now coming up, the experts are going to tell you what you should do to get the best deal. I'm Hank Winchester. That story coming right up.
All right, Hank, but first, police swarm this plane and splay out all the luggage on the runway. What happened midair to cause this? Next.
On Jeopardy!
New at 6.
Kicking indoors and breaking down the sense of security for families at a condo complex very close to downtown.
Because the door was completely kicked in.
Next on Local 4, I'll show you these guys in action and how many times they've been striking this little community.
Looking around like, okay, it's a miracle, you know.
He knew he might not survive prison due to the nature of the crime. But New at 6, as he awaits a new trial, Bernard Young reveals the part of his personality that may have saved his life as an inmate.
The FBI is investigating after a security issue causes an American Airlines plane to make an unscheduled landing. The Ohio flight was headed to Phoenix, diverted to St. Louis, though. Once the plane landed, crews moved all of the baggage from the plane onto the tarmac, and police then did a security sweep, but they found no credible threat.
Help me, Hank. The flower test, putting Valentine's Day flowers like these on the table here, which were purchased at Costco, Kroger, and Thrifty Flowers.
On your toes, up over
I know, they're a little tall.
Flowers. Tonight, we're revealing secrets from florists who show you how to keep your flowers to last longer. Here's our consumer investigator, Hank Winchester.
Here at Viviano's, they are getting ready for Valentine's Day and placing all of those orders. Tonight, Insider Secrets. What can you do to help make sure your flowers last a little bit longer? And what should you say when you place that order?
They're bright, beautiful, and ready for Valentine's Day.
Better always to work with the florist that's going to fill your orders, because they're going to take the most pride in doing it the right way.
Paul Viviano, owner of Viviano's Floral, says building a relationship with the florist is key. And if you're sending flowers out of town, look online.
If you want to deal directly with the florist who's filling your order, the best way is to Google it and go onto Google and find a florist locally in the area and use other services like Yelp.
If you order flowers online, just know the arrangement you get may not always look like the one pictured. And here's why.
There's some confusion. FTD and Telefloral, for example, don't own flower shops. They always have to contract that with somebody else.
And what about flowers purchased at stores like Costco, Kroger, and Thrifty Flowers? The Costco arrangement, we purchased 2 dozen roses for $18.01. We bought an arrangement at Kroger, a dozen roses, $37.10. And the Thrifty Flowers, 12 roses for $26.49. We set up a time-lapse camera to track the progress, and while the Kroger flowers seem to last the longest, it is hard to beat the Costco deal. 24 roses for under $19. And no matter where you buy the flowers, there are some things that you should do to make those flowers last a little bit longer.
You want to try to keep the flowers away from things that are warm. You want to do is try to minimize the bacteria in your water. The best way is always just to change the water.
Plant food does work, use it, but putting pennies in a vase or an aspirin, not so much.
In our tests, they don't do much different than just keeping it in regular water.
When ordering flowers, try to be as specific as possible. The types of flowers you want to see, the price point, a vase or in a box, all can make a big difference, affecting not only what you'll pay, but also what your sweetheart will get.
And remember, a lot of local florists and even the big name vendors online offering you incentives if you get your order in early. Don't be that guy who waits until February 14th. I'm Hank Winchester. Help me, Hank. Back to you.